Hey guys, I'm back with part 2 in my read-through of The Secret Man by Frank Dux. Hope you guys like the picture on screen right now. I thought to myself, instead of doing the same old generic read-through series like I've seen on other people's YouTube channels, where they have a picture of the cover on screen, why not put up a funny meme with Frank Dux on it instead? And I started looking up funny Frank Dux memes online, and I came across this one here. This actually I came across from a website. It was like it had top 10 fake martial artists who lied for fame or something like that, and of course Frank was number one on the list. And when it got to him, I saw this picture and I just laughed my ass off. I'm like, this is perfect for this read through series, so I had to get it and put it on screen for you guys. Hopefully, you find it as funny as I do. And also, if you guys want to make any Frank Dukes memes for yourselves and send them my way to put on screen for this Let's Read series, please feel free to do so. But we're going to go ahead and continue on and read Chapter 2, Find the Needle. "Have you ever killed anyone?" my date asked in her polished British accent. The question sounded flippant. It probably was. I watched for a sign to indicate whether she was truly interested or just making conversation. She was a striking woman with flawless olive skin, save for the small mole on her back, and her low-cut blouse made her even more enticing, emphasizing her curves as well as a clear sense of assurance. She was used to catching stars. She hid behind sunglasses, worn for show, also as a mask. I was tired of masks. The many years I had worn them returned to haunt me. But on my missions there had always been a reason, often a matter of life and death. Such motivation seemed absurd here in the shade of an umbrella among the tables that made up Le Petit Four, a Sunset Plaza sidewalk bistro in West Hollywood. For just a moment I debated whether to tell her about fish, but quickly decided against it. I had been trained not to. Besides, she probably wouldn't have believed me. "That's not a civilized question," I answered. I didn't want to insult her, but I had a hard time with people who asked such questions from ideal curiosity or thrill-seeking. What the hell did she want? I hated to tell her that she wouldn't find a thrill in coming up against a Heckler and Koch MP5 or an Uzi or Mac-10. The reality of killing was gruesome. People only took such subjects lightly if they never experienced the reality, or maybe if they were brainwashed, mentally deranged, or acting in a bad movie. I have only my own experience to go on, but I must say that even though problems became easier to deal with in lethal fashions as I grew more experienced, the aftermath never got easier. In fact, the opposite held true. How could anyone know anything about death and the suffering it inflicted upon others, human beings with hearts, and remain only causally interested in killing? Okay. Tea time conversation in the room. The women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. "Frank, seriously, you should have just hired a ghostwriter to write this book for you. I thought my grammar was bad, but yours is far worse than mine. Oh my god." Perhaps Bloodsport, the movie made about my martial arts exploit, had aroused her curiosity, or maybe some people mistakenly associated the martial arts with a propensity towards violence. Whether the case, I wearied of such questions posed by women in sidewalk cafes. She flirted with me. No doubt I appeared exotic, and for a little while she might want to toy with danger, only fictitiously, of course. When satisfied with her game, she could return to her safe and loaded boyfriend, or she might move on in her elusive search for a bigger and better deal. She flashed a smile in my direction. She wanted a rush. I had worked in close contact with authorized secret killers of the CIA and KGB, as well as underworld killers made up of outlaws, organized criminals, and mercenaries. I had sat at similar tables face to face with psychopaths like Fish. Now all that seemed like a dream at this trendy West Hollywood cafe here in LA, in crowd sipped Napa Valley wine, checking one another out to make sure they weren't missing any celebrities or latest trends. My date leaned forward, showing off her cleavage while playfully kissing my brow. I recognized this ploy for what it was. Other pretty faces in the past, accustomed to manipulating men, had done likewise. A lady of seduction, she had all the nuances down pat, not unlike the textbook examples I had been taught to identify painstakingly at the expense of the taxpayers. I'd been instructed to acknowledge that sex is a powerful weapon that cannot be overlooked when examining history, especially if one wishes to delve into my world of subterfuge. Within the first 6 months of dutiful service to Bill Casey, I was schooled in the skillful art of seduction. One cannot imagine the level of embarrassment or insight gained as I discovered just how ignorant I was and how inadequately I initially performed when enrolled in this sexual graduate course. I was a naive 25 when I was unwittingly introduced into the program by Gabrielle. I'll leave a caption because I can't pronounce his last name. A leggy French-Canadian blonde. Within just a few weeks of our first meeting, Gabrielle had me dangling from an emotional thread. I truly have killed for her. One perfectly romantic evening during intercourse, I was ready to climax when she whispered in my ear that Gabrielle, whatever, this, once again, I'll leave the caption so I can't pronounce the damn last name, was an alias. Her confession of being a contract agent exposed my vulnerability. More impressively, it demonstrated at what length DCI Director of Central Intelligence Casey and Bob, I'll leave a caption because I can't pronounce this guy's last name. Hold on, I'm going to look him up real fast. Give me a second here. Oh, big surprise. Another dead person that Frank is using. Should have known. Anyways, continuing on. Casey and Bob, my handlers. Wait, timeout. So you had two handlers when you were in the CIA. I thought you only had to have one handler. Then again, I don't know anything about the CIA or how it works. Anyone who knows anything about the CIA, please fill me in. Do you have to have two handlers, or do you only have one handler when you work with the CIA? But once again, let's go ahead and continue. Were willing to go to ensure I would remain their secret. The whole ploy had been Casey's idea. He believed that during his days with the OSS, the most effective means by which he had gleaned secret Nazi information was through the manipulative efforts of a seductress he had handled. Humbled, I paced the richly appointed safe house that overlooked the American embassy at the Concorde in Paris. My seductress, Gabrielle, as prearranged, dramatically opened the door to a middle-aged Dutch woman. She wore no makeup and was neatly attired in a man's navy blue pinstripe suit. Her long hair was slicked back and pulled into a bun. Her stiff movements almost led me to believe that her sexual orientation was not heterosexual. Like that really matters. When no indications were forthcoming, I mentally nicknamed my new teacher Brunhilde. I'll leave a caption because I'm probably going to butcher the name if I try to pronounce it here. She was all business, even in the manner she stroked my ego with compliments. Months later she told me all this was necessary at the time, since I was fairly inexperienced and obviously still obsessed with so-called Gabrielle. At the safe house, Gabrielle eased my newfound disappointment by playfully encouraging me to sit beside her on the oversized couch. Thereupon, I'm going to try to pronounce it. If I butcher it, please forgive me. Brunhilde lectured me on the spy's clinical reasoning and the approach to manipulate others through sexual allure, while presented in the most scientific, scholarly, and sterile manner. The information proved liberating. During this course, which spanned several locations and visits with Brunhilde, the curriculum covered all aspects of seduction, different ploys designed to insert one into a stranger's life, and once there, the means to create codependency and the application of a psychological technological that manipulates behavior. She taught me how to convey through body language the unwavering appearance of a warm and sympathetic ear. Also, I also learned what probing questions will elect and exploit old emotions, or elicit what questions will elicit and exploit old emotional wounds, so that I could become the desired crutch, the crutch to lean on for emotional support. Further aspects of behavior explored in order later to be exploited included a woman's need for a sense of security, a challenge, or her particular rebellious tendencies. More importantly, I was educated in how to bridge those unspoken communication gaps, uh, separating nuances of behavior and intimacy. Sorry, intimacy. Okay. For example, one method for stimulating a sense of intimacy is merely how to find the right varying touch. Since consistent pressure communicates a mechanical effort to please, I was taught to arouse a woman's feet, hands, or ears by lightly kissing, blowing, licking, or gentle biting. Oh my god. I think you've been reading too many trashy romance novels, Frank. Helpful tips included caressing a woman's entire body with a soft, supple brush, commonly used to apply to apply face powder. I was encouraged to be spontaneous, to lick strawberry jam off my lover's toes in the dark corner booth of a I'll leave a caption, I can't read that. I became increasingly armed with an unconventional methodology to overcome barriers, both my own and those of my intended target. Brunhilde made sure I was skilled in preparing concoctions made from agency-supplied controlled substances, formulations designed to heighten the sexual experience. One can lace a cigarette with a substance that, when combined with alcohol, leaves one not only tipsy, but totally uninhibited and easily seduced. Ironically, the more skilled I became in the treacherous ways of love, the more inhibited I felt toward those women in my life whom I genuinely cared for. No aspect of seduction was trivialized fictitiously. I was instructed on how to give well-placed, non-aggressive, sensitive, yet concentrated kisses. It may sound outlandish, but I believe the lessons enabling me to translate a kiss saved my life. Just 2 years after my affair with Gabrielle, I found myself captivated by a vibrant, dark-skinned woman in Beirut. She was as outwardly stunning as she appeared passionate. She'd gently remove my clothes and make love to me at the most spontaneous moments in the most outrageous locations. We had sex in an elevator, at another time in a phone booth in the lobby of a five-star hotel. Seriously, Frank, if this were true at all, you would have been arrested for indecent exposure. But then again, I never been to Beirut, but I don't think they uh, are okay with having sex in public. Just me, though. One day, excited just looking at her, I used a lighter to trip the sprinkler system in her office, drenched her white blouse and skirt, became transparent and pressed against her figure, exposing just a garter belt and stockings. I wasted no time ripping her sobbing clothes from her body. With each orgasm she quivered in my arms, unlike the quite more subdued lovers I'd grown accustomed to back home. Seriously, Frank, this sounds like something out of a trashy romance novel. However, this woman never really let me kiss her passionately on the lips. Her standoffish kisses triggered suspicions that she was avoiding intimacy. Like the prostitutes about whom Brunhilde had informed me, they too were unwilling to kiss during a sexual act. Listening to reason, I abandoned my non-kissing love, convinced she possessed ulterior motives. I suspected her of looking for a sucker who would provide her with the means to move to the United States. Months later, while debriefing a contact, I discovered that my ex-girlfriend had been neutralized as a terrorist. She had a penchant for seducing foreigners in I'll leave a caption, I can't read that here. During her lovers Alluring her lovers to places where they could easily be kidnapped or killed. My contact provided me with surveillance footage of my ex-girlfriend. I couldn't help feeling strangely jealous, seeing her in the company of another man, whom I believe was CIA Station Chief William Buckley. Footage shot just weeks before Buckley's mysterious disappearance. My date let out a disappointed sigh. She shot me a tough look and gave me attitude a pout, another typical calculated ploy to encourage me to talk and provide her with a thrill. I chuckled to myself. How would this beautiful, polished woman with her white Mercedes and her toy Doberman napping at my feet, fare in Schiller's Grill on Munich's Schiller Strasse. I'll leave a caption because it's German for streets. Okay, at the time, the early 1980s, an underworld meeting spot for information and recruitment of talent. It was, depending on the hour, lined with pimps and prostitutes, ex-legionnaires, and soldiers of fortune, cat burglars, bank robbers, or mafia. I'll leave a caption, I can't read the word, and their lieutenants. Push your way into that crowd dive after 10 at night, and you're taking your life in your own hands. Proper introductions are required. I recall one incident in which one poor sap bodybuilder was asked to leave underworld fashion. He was pistol whipped to the floor by a guy half his size. On their way out, several customers stopped to urinate and farewell on the unconscious man. I suppose they too wanted to leave their mark. The bodybuilder's companion rushed out of the bar to call the police, who refused to respond. Munich cops are some of the toughest bastards in the world, and they are also street smart. They know better than to spit into the underworld wind tunnel. To enter the Schiller Grill at that time after 10 p.m. would be tantamount to declaring war. Rubbing shoulders with the inhabitants of that circle, naturally one becomes acquainted with a gallery of rogues, just as in some of the other circles in which I've run. Only those guys might be wearing ties or uniforms. I stared at my date for a moment, swallowing my desire to tell her what I thought. She wouldn't understand anyway. Perhaps sometime I'll take you to Franco's bar, I told her. Franco's bar? Where's that? She asked, removing her sunglasses to reveal her brown eyes. Moulin, Moulin Corso, Magente, Vente. God damn it, I do not speak Italian here. It's someplace in Italy. Alright, or at least that's what he's claiming. Next to the Hotel King, insiders know its name. I decided to tell her a little story. Don't jump to conclusions. If the bartender there tells you the place was nicknamed after a 22-year-old youngster named Franco, who supposedly killed his first time there in a knife fight with two giants from... I'll leave a caption, I can't read that. Okay, they pulled switchblades and threatened to slit Franco's throat if he didn't leave and never come back. According to the bartender, Franco told them this is my home away from home. Don't mess with me in my home. They didn't believe him. I smiled back at her. At least that's how the story goes. Her eyes were undisturbed. Everything was a game for her entertainment. I was tired of games. I have been playing games all my life, and they made everything, even the fear of death, seem unreal. Perhaps my father had realized this when he made his decision to leave the intelligence business. Maybe I too would learn this lesson before it was too late. Director of Central Intelligence William Casey had played games, and I had been one of his playing pieces. I resisted an urge to spill my guts out to the woman who sat across from me. God knows I needed a friendly ear, not to mention a friendly bosom on which to lay my head. I wanted to talk, however, over the years I had trained myself not to talk about the things that were the most important. Many times Casey told me, son, whatever happens, don't talk. When the shit goes down, that's the only way one can maintain one's dignity. How could that gorgeous face and body comprehend how difficult it was to stare someone in the eyes and kill him? Even someone as horrifying as Fish. Anyway, the day-to-day details, compiling leads, sources, even tracking someone, would cause her eyes to glaze over in boredom behind her sunglasses. For my first year on the Fish case, not only did I have no clue whatsoever to his identity, but I was not even sure such a person existed. Casey handed me a string of unsolved murders whose only similarities lay in their seemingly randomness, the gruesome brutality inflicted upon the victims, their lack of identities, and the fact that no evidence existed as to the identity of the killer or killers. What's the connection? I asked. The killer, of course, he replied. I think it's a I think it's a company man, or at least someone with agency connections. See what you can do. But what do I have to go on? I I'll leave a caption. I can't read that word there. Listen, son, Casey snarled. One of my hunches is worth a hell of a lot more than a whole shit pile of evidence. I didn't know him well enough then to realize that he was having some fun at my expense and that I was supposed to know it. As far as the CIA went, I was still raw and un. I'll leave a caption. I can't read that word. In the more God damn it! I'll leave another caption. I can't read that word either. Circles of intelligence operation. Originally recruited while still in my teens, I was seduced by the perfumed promises of glory and adventure by my sponsor, Major General uh, Forsman, United States Air Force, who secretly oversaw selective covert operations in Europe. Later in 1981, after a 2-year hiatus, I was re-recruited by the charismatic Bob. I'll leave a caption. I can't pronounce the dude's last name. Um, and DCI Bill Casey, my handlers, and the only intelligence officers who knew my actual identity and who were responsible for creating my many roles. Since the clandestine nature of the intelligence community demands secrecy, it is up to the community to police itself. That it was my job to make sure that covert actions was not taking place under the guise of authority to serve individual ambitions. Such was the case with Ollie North, who used Iran Contra funds for his own projects, the most mundane being home improvements. More uh, Even Ollie knew me only by my code name, for in order for me to perform this job most effectively, Casey cloaked my identity to the intelligence community as a whole, including North, who was a national security counsel, not the CIA. I paid a price for this cloak, however. As a result, the remaining mask I risked, remaining masked, I risked double jeopardy. In addition to carrying out dangerous covert operations, I chanced being killed by my fellow covert ops, either by accident, mistaken identity, or in conjunction with their often violent means of shielding their extracurricular criminal endeavors. Double duty, Casey called it. Double your pleasure, double your fun. Now you're quoting shit from commercials. Oh, God. Okay. Got me a number with double zeros in front of it, I kid. Only on your paycheck, he'd answer in his gruff voice, the same tone he used that day in mid 1981 when he assigned me to the fish case. A piece of Soviet hardware was found at the murder scene, he told me, courtesy of a friend at the FBI. We were put on notice. Exclusive hardware, son. I don't think it's KGB related. One of our animals could be out of its cage. Find the needle. In the haystack, he meant. I should have known, thinking back to my first meeting with Casey, I should have realized that what an impossible job this would be, and how for the most part I'd be left with little or no information to go on, striking out into the dark. And that's it for Chapter 2, Finding the Needle. Hopefully you enjoyed this read through of The Secret Man by Frank Dux. Till next time, peace.